The 1/4 Grocery Challenge by Shirella. Do you think you could take your grocery budget or whatever amount you spend on groceries and do 1/4 of your spending on produce, on fruits and vegetables in the store? Well, I took this challenge myself when I heard about it and thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this. That's a lot of produce because my usual monthly budget would be about $400 for groceries. So I had to spend $100 on produce. So I used to think that produce could be expensive because you would buy something and you might not use half of it and you would just go to waste. And so it seemed like you're buying stuff that's just you're not even using. But as I went through and I started to figure out how our family used vegetables and how we could use them before they went bad, and then comparing like vegetables to fruit, comparing the cost of fruit and vegetables to meat, they're quite cheap actually. So even if you do throw away half of it, it's like dollars compared to tens of dollars with meat. At least that's what I'm finding in the area that I live. So I had to adapt my way of thinking to be able to have 1/4 of my budget for food spent in the produce section. One thing that I found that was the first thing was that meat really does cost a lot and packaged foods. And when you start incorporating more produce and more fruits and vegetables, then you don't grab for these things as much. They're more expensive and you realize that they don't do your body as good as vegetables. So I remember when we started doing this, I looked down into the food trap of the sink and I saw all this live green food matter. And I thought, that's kind of weird to see that sitting in my sink. I didn't realize we just really hadn't concentrated that heavily on vegetables. I mean, we'd have vegetables, but just it didn't seem like it was a main portion of what we were eating, and I didn't normally find it in the food trap in the sink. And then thereafter, we had to start a compost because there was so much that we were going through with our produce. And then we started, using our garden to get some of that. And then we had to build up the garden with the compost from what we were already eating. And then our compost became really large and our garden produced tons. So some things I found out as I switched to this 1/4 produce mentality was that I had to be creative with figuring out how to use my plant food. I had to think of recipes. I had to think of ways to incorporate it. Let's pull out this too. I'd give the kids a choice of you can have this or this instead of just eat your broccoli. It's like you could eat cherry tomatoes or you can eat celery sticks, your choice. And oftentimes I'd eat both because it was a choice. I found that I had to reconfigure my fridge differently, like to fit like 1/3 of the contents of the fridge with produce. I had to allocate my shelves and my drawers differently to fit all that produce. Like I mentioned, I had to find recipes that were more plant-based. So I subscribed to the Walmart e-meals where they give you all these kind of different recipes that are based on whatever you choose, and I chose the plant-based. And there's also forks over knives. If you search online for whole foods plant-based, you can come up with a ton of recipes. And one that I like is with Janet Birch her thing is called Discovering the Word of Wisdom. And she has all sorts of recipes and ideas and testimonials from people who have beat illnesses through eating more plants. So I had to come up with a whole bunch of different recipes. And now I even have just this little file. It's kind of like a little photo album, but I just stick now my favorite of my plant easy recipes into there. Because some of the things are like wraps. You pull out a wheat tortilla, add on your lettuce and your tomatoes and maybe a little meat and some avocado and hummus and all this stuff. And you've got yourself an awesome quick lunch. I also found that as I was coming up with desserts, because we'll do a kind of fancy dessert one time a week, I had to think of things that I could use with fruit. So it's like cherry dump and pineapple turnover, upside down cake, and apple cobbler and peach cobbler, apple crisp, blueberry, I can't remember what that one's called, blackberry crumble. There's a whole bunch of fruit-based foods that you can make that I started to make every week instead. And then I would have to tell the kids, oh, by the way, there's some beans in the fridge that need to be eaten, or I've already cut up some carrots and celery that are in the fridge. And then at dinner, because we were already incorporating the plants into our foods, I didn't have to say to the kids, eat your vegetables, because they're already in the food we were eating, which is pretty cool. I made sure that we kept the fruit bowl on the bar full. And in fact, I bought a fancier fruit bowl because I had this old wooden falling apart bowl that wasn't very nice looking. And I was like, we're going to make this real. So I bought this black wrought iron fancy looking decorative thing that had this banana thing that came over and can hold your bananas. And it looks fancy. And so of course I'm going to fill up that fruit bowl, right? Of course people are going to take the fruit from that fruit bowl. I had to figure out which stores I liked better for what. Like I liked one store better for their potatoes and another store better for their some of their organic green leaf vegetables. Learning how to eat new vegetables, mainly because of that e-mills that incorporates different things like artichokes and arugula and a bunch of things that you're like, what is this? And it helps you figure out what those things are. And then what things are better to buy, organic or no. If you look online, you can find like the top 10 best fruits or vegetables that you should get organic just because they're so terribly sprayed heavily. So you can find out what those are. And I would say now that I probably spend half of my grocery bill on produce now. As I look through my list as I order online, because I'm glad that someone else will do their shopping for me, and I go pick it up. I just find that as I look through it, it's mostly a lot. There's a lot of vegetables, a lot of produce, fruits and vegetables on there. So yay for us. We've made that switch. So like today, let me tell you what I've eaten. For breakfast, part of it was a smoothie made out of 4 fruits. For lunch, I had a medley of 3 different vegetables of cucumbers, grape tomatoes, and pineapple. And for dinner tonight, we're going to have a chili that incorporates zucchini and corn and celery and tomatoes, plus a whole bunch of beans, like pinto beans and kidney beans. And then fresh squoze straight from our orchard, organic apple juice. So they say 5 is fine, but 9 is divine. And today I got mine. Can you? Can you do the 4th grocery challenge? Well, I talk about this and so much more in my online program, which you can find that is about eating better, moving your body better, and having better self-care so you can be your very best and be what God and you intended you to be. You can find it by going to www.honeydewhealthin91.com.